We're back. Alicia.
I appreciate Steve's passion, and I guess my question is, I feel as though Howard Schultz did a very good job coming out and asserting what he is against and the ways in which he believes the system is broken. What I'm looking forward to are articulations of how he believes those big challenges should be solved, because I think part of what you're seeing on the Democratic side is candidates who are really doing a very good job of articulating the nuances of their policy positions up front, such that voters can actually tell the difference between them and they have an understanding of what they stand for. I think there was the risk that all of them would come out and be like, I'm not Donald Trump, please elect me. And I think that they have understood that there is a great sorting out among the Democratic base, where they're trying to figure out how do you balance the various economic messages and needs of this base against some of the social justice needs of this base. And they're using this period to suss that out. It will be interesting to me to see how Schultz positions himself within that.
Well, I think there's been such a avalanche, right, this week, that obviously he'll get there and he'll have to answer questions about a range of issues. But, for example, one issue this week and I think he's responsible for precipitating an honest-to-God, old-fashioned policy debate within the Democratic primary on the question of Medicare for all. When you think about the banality and stupidity of the debate we have of the Great Wall of Trump in Mexico, I think that this is manna from heaven. But when you talk about Medicare for all, and people will say on TV, well, it's popular. Well, is it? I mean, when I asked the doorman at the hotel, who's a friend of mine I've known for 10 years, do you want to lose your private insurance? He doesn't. How does that work? How does that function? How does that pay for it? So we saw Kamala Harris this week say that let's get rid of all the insurance companies in America and we'll close down the insurance markets, before she reversed and I think went back to the other position. So there's a lack of imagination, I think, in my view, right, with everyone jumping that, my God, he'll spoil the election, deliver the election to Trump, which he will not do. But there seems to be a lack of imagination that
what's the device for him not doing that? You're going to look at the polls? What's the device? Because it's intoxicating. If you're at 19%, you don't get out. You're going to call him like you have a red button?
I think what Howard Schultz has said is that if he doesn't see multiple paths to 270 electoral votes, he's not going to be a spoiler. He's not going to be a spoiler. He's not going to be a spoiler candidate in this race. That being said, I think there's a real lack of imagination on the part of Democrats that Trump can get reelected. The idea that every Democrat wins, that there's an appetite for 70% tax rates, which have been bandied about, this idea that there'll be free college, there'll be free daycare, there'll be student loan forgiveness, there'll be government guaranteed.
I think Democrats are actually very aware of the possibility that none of them can
guaranteed jobs for everybody. That stuff is as dishonest as Trump's wall paid for by Mexico. And the problem for Democrats is if you want to fight Trumpism with a dishonest progressivism that's promising all sorts of fantasy programs, tough to win a dishonesty contest with Donald Trump.
First and foremost, not just for you, Steve, and everybody else. If there's a Democrat out there that's actually worried about Howard Schultz, then they're not doing their jobs. The Democrats have the name recognition, they have the infrastructure, they have the organization, they have the history. If you're whining about some rich coffee guy jumping into this race 2 months in advance, then Democrats have already lost the campaign. They have already lost the election. He is not someone that anyone should be remotely concerned about. And historically speaking, he's most likely to attract people just like you, never Trumpers. He's more likely to hurt Donald Trump than he is to hurt any Democrat who's actually running. So I've never understood any liberal or left or Democratic people who are concerned about him. I think it's a personal fantasy. I think lots of rich people want to run for president because they can. I think they see what Donald Trump did and they think, I can be Trump, I can be Mark Cuban, et cetera, et cetera. But I say the more the merrier. That's how democracy is supposed to work. I say he can run. I don't think he'll be successful. I don't think he's going to get anywhere. I think he'll fail tremendously. But the idea that anybody who believes in democracy would say that this guy can't run because we're afraid that it might make it too competitive and we'll end up with Trump again, then those people don't believe in democracy and they don't believe in the American people.
I agree with half of what you said. I admire your optimism for the cause. It made me want to break my other arm. But no, listen, I think he's a more complex person, and I think as the American people get to know him, I think they'll like him. I think they will respond to the message. Of course there's been diligence done, and within that diligence is that there is responsive to the message. Like, listen, what is it that the American people are seeing this week? What is it that they're seeing? They're seeing the media class, who got it completely wrong 4 years ago, all of a sudden has perfectly recaptured their psychic prognostication abilities. And
we may be friends, but I am a part of that media. I think the media is trying to take him in. I think there is a hubristic aspect to how he jumped in, and I think that there are people that are who covered the midterms, who saw the Democrats make extraordinary gains, but you're right, not as many as you might have thought if you cover the sort of the trespasses of Trump and Trumpism, who are genuinely scared. But it doesn't cloud people's ability to say an independent has never won. It has only ever served as a spoiler. Matt, go.
Yeah, look, he's had a tough launch. Poor him. He's a billionaire. Yeah. The only reason we're talking about him, he's been on Morning Joe. He's been on 60 Minutes. Every time I turn on the television the past 3 days, all I've seen is Howard Schultz. He has opportunities that no one else has. And the thing that bothers me about the way he's launched this campaign so far...
It's not a campaign. He's posed a question.
His exploration, his question. I see some of the same false equivalency that I saw in 2016, where people would say, both parties are broken. Both of these candidates are terrible. Well, maybe you didn't like Hillary Clinton. She wasn't as bad as Donald Trump. The Democratic Party today is not broken.
She wasn't a Russian asset.
The Democratic Party today is not broken in the fundamental way that the Republican Party is broken. And none of the candidates the Democratic Party will nominate are anywhere near as unfit for office as Donald Trump is. So when I look at him running, I see someone who's a Democrat, who's spent his entire, I don't know if his entire life, but at least his recent life as a Democrat, who now I hear has left the party because, one, he doesn't think he can win by running as a Democrat, and two, he's mad that Democrats are proposing to raise his taxes and the taxes of other billionaires.
I doubt
that. That strikes me as deeply.
Wait, can I just ask you though? Did he look at? I mean, did you guys look at running as a Democrat?
No, he was clear that he feels estranged from the Democratic Party. There are
but then
millions
why not fix
and millions.
It? Why not move the party to the center?
Because there are millions and millions of Americans who are estranged from the process. And one of the things that's wrong in the analysis, we stand at a moment where the moderate middle of the country has both been never larger and in more general agreement about what to do on complex problems like immigration, at the same time in this era of incitement that they have been completely disenfranchised and have lost their voice because both sides incite and appeal to the base. And we see that in the reaction, the breach in any orthodoxy. Now, what I will say on the issue of taxes and what he said, Matt, he has said that he was against Trump's corporate tax cut, that he would have benefited. He said it was outrageous. He said that it was a sugar high that will lead to economic distress and a hangover eventually. It did nothing to solve the core problem, which is economic inequality and giving a hand up to working class people. Now, Elizabeth Warren and her consultants, for example, have gone out and they've come up with a bumper sticker slogan, right? And her tax cut, punitive on the billionaires, would fund the government for 3 weeks. It's not comprehensive. It's not serious. And it's time for an adult to have an honest conversation. And if Howard Schultz does that and he catches on, let's see what happens. But the reaction, the shout down, the illiberalism of it all, it's bad. It's bad for America, and it's the same type of stuff that Trump has done, and it's a reciprocal Trumpism, and it's bad for America.
All right, this adult has to sneak in a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. This conversation is nowhere near over. We'll keep it up. But for today, my thanks to Steve Schmidt, Matt Miller, Alicia Melendez, and Jason Johnson. That does it for our hour. Thank you for watching.